Hello and welcome. I'm Raghav, and this session is going to be very interesting. Today, we are going to learn how can we put our project on a version control system like Git, and then finally how we can upload our project on a repository like GitHub. This will be very easy and very interesting. Generally, when we work in teams, when we work in organizations, we work a single project is being worked upon by multiple team members. So there are many team members who work on a single project. And in that case, if we are working on our local systems, we have to then merge our project, collaborate the changes, and this will be very difficult without a version control tool. Therefore, we use version control tools like Git to collaborate our changes, merge our changes, and we put our project on a common repository on some repository platforms like GitHub. And from there, we can get the local copies, we can then work on our local systems and then finally push it back to the common remote repository. So this is what we are going to do today. So we will see how we can put our project on a version control system using Git, and then we will upload our project on GitHub. And then we will also see how we can clone the project from GitHub. So I will give you my GitHub project link, and using that, using the steps I will tell you, you can also clone my project into your system. And finally, we will see how we can remove the project from Git version control. So let's get started. And the first step is we should be having Git enabled and installed on our system. And for that, you can go to your command line if you are on Windows, and if you are on Mac or Linux, you can go to your terminal and type the command git space -- version and hit enter. And if you have Git installed and set up, it should show you the Git version. In case you do not see this Git version using this command, you can go to your browser and go to Google and search for Git download. This will take you to this link, git-scm.com/downloads. And from here, you can download the Git installer and then run the installer to install Git on your system. So you can see all the operating systems, and by default here, it will show you for your operating system. Now, you can also see this from my earlier videos. If you go to my website, automationstepbystep.com, here, if you scroll down to the section for version control systems, you can find Git and GitHub tutorials here. These are all beginner tutorials. And very recently, I had created one video on Git and GitHub, a single video. So if you search by my name, Git and GitHub Raghav Pal, you should find this video. This is a single video where I have shown all the basics of Git and GitHub. So this will be very handy if you are a complete beginner on Git and GitHub. So you can watch this one. And once you have Git installed, we will move to the next step. And during this process, if you face any problems, any issues, you can let me know in the comment section below. I will also keep all the notes, all the links, all the references in the description section below this video. So this is step number one. Now step number two is we will go to github.com and we will create an account and then log into our account. If you already have an account on GitHub, you can log into the account. So let's see, I will go to github.com. And here we have sign in and sign up. So to create an account, go to sign up, and it will ask you email address, and then you will be asked for a username and password and few more steps. And then it will send a link to your email and you can activate your account. And then finally, after creating the account, we can sign in. So I must have my account signed in here. Let me check. I'll go to github.com. And yes, I'm signed in here. And this is my dashboard. Here we can create new projects or new repositories. So next step is we will create a new repository on GitHub. So here you can click on this button, or you can go to this plus button drop down here and select new repository. So I'm just clicking here, and you can give any name to the repository. I will say WebdriverIO, and you can give WebdriverIO or WebdriverIO project, whatever you feel like, and it should be available. So this is available. So I'll just go with this, and you can give some description, which is optional. I'll keep it public and then click on create repository. So this will create our repository, and this is the URL of the repository. We can also get the link from here. So we can copy it from here as well. So we have done step number 3. Now we will go to our VS Code and we will open our project folder in VS Code. So if your project is already opened in VS Code, that is fine. Otherwise, you can just open your project in VS Code. So this is the project that we have been working on in our WebdriverIO sessions. Now, the next step is very important. We have to create a file called .gitignore, and the importance of this file is when we put our project on version control, when we add it to a version control system, when we add it to Git, there are some folders, some files which we do not want to add. There are 2 reasons. The first one is we do not need them to be uploaded on the remote repository, and the second one is they may be some very heavy and bulky files. For example, if I go to my project folder, there is a node modules folder, and here I have all the node libraries, and I do not want them to go to the repository, and anyways these are very heavy and they will take a lot of time. Similarly, we have these results and reports folder, LEO report, LEO results, JUnit reports. We don't want them to go to the repository or get added to the Git version control system. So we will create a file called .gitignore, and make sure this file should be created just below the project folder or directly inside the project folder. So click on your project folder, and here is a icon to create a new file, and I will name it .gitignore. Okay, so you can see this is the file created, .gitignore, and make sure it is in your project folder. So if you see here, it has gone into my specs folder, so I have to move it out. I will just move it outside and should keep it directly inside the project folder. You can do it manually from the folder explorer as well. So if you see here, now my file is here. Okay, this should be directly in your project folder, and here I will say I can give the locations of the folders and files which I do not want. So I can say node modules, because node modules is directly under my project folder. I can directly give this, or I can also say something like this node modules. This will also work. And let's say I want to say LEO report and JUnit reports. All this I will add here and save my file. Now there are different ways to generate this gitignore file. You will find some extensions within VS Code. So if you go to the extensions section here, you can see you can start typing .gitignore generator, and there are extensions like this which will generate the .gitignore file for you. You can just have to tell what project you are doing, whether it is a Node project or a JavaScript or a Java, and it will generate a .gitignore file for you. And we can also search online. If I say .gitignore template for Node project, you can see we have got some links here that gives us a template that we can directly add for our Node project. So you can see this is a template. Now it has so many things. It is a generic template, but we can pick up what all we want. If I go to this link for Stack Overflow, here also you can see we have got these node modules.npm.env. Hash is used for comments. So if I want to add some comment anywhere in my file, I will say hash, and whatever I want to type, I can type a comment like this. Okay, there are also online generators. So if I say .gitignore template generator, so you can see here we have got some generators like this. Here we just have to tell what is the project. So in my case, in our case, we are using a Node project. So I will say Node and we'll say create, and you can see a template is created, and we can see from here how to give the different files and folder names. Here also you can see we have these generators, so we can use any of these. So if you are a beginner, you can use any of these, or for our project, this is enough. We have just added node modules, LO report, and JUnit reports folder. Okay, and we can give we can put stars, and we can give wild characters, all that we can do here. Okay, so this was the next step, and then we will go to the source control section of our VS Code. And before that, make sure that Git is enabled in VS Code. So for that, you can go to settings. You can go to settings from the menu, or from here you can see there's a settings icon here. Click settings and go to settings from here and start typing Git enabled. Okay, so Git enabled, and this will show you a option for Git enabled. This should be checked, so make sure this is checked. And after confirming this setting, let us now go to the source control section here. And here we have got this button to initialize repository. And when I click on this, our project will be added to Git, and all the unstaged changes, that is the changes that we have not committed, will be shown here. So I click on initialize repository, and you can see all our project, all the files which are not yet committed or staged have come here, and all these are marked with icon U means unstaged. Again, if I go back to my Explorer, all this is in green now, U means unstaged. Okay, so now because this is the first commit, so everything will be unstaged. Also, if you see, there are so many changes. There are more than 150 changes, 189 changes to be exact, and that may be because I have still not added the Allure results folder. So let me add that as well, and then you will see the difference. I will add Allure results, and as soon as I save my .gitignore file, you can see all this is now gone from here, and now I just have around 12 changes to be committed. And the same, if I see here, this is what I need to be committed. All right, now to commit, we will give a commit message and commit, and you can see here is a box to give a commit message, and then I can either click on this tick mark, or I can just click here commit. Okay, so I will say here my first commit. Now generally we give some meaningful names whenever we make any changes in our project. We give the message for whatever we have done. Let's say we have added something in the project, or deleted something, or updated some particular file. We will put that here so that everyone in the team knows what commit we have done. Okay, so I will say, as of now, I'll just say my first commit and click on commit, and it says there are no staged changes to commit. Would you like to stage your changes? If you say always, it will not ask this question again, but I will for now just say yes. And here it will now commit all the changes. And at this moment, if you go and check your repository on GitHub, we have not got anything here because we have not yet pushed our changes to this repository. In fact, we have not even added this repository in our VS Code. So we have to do that first. And now after committing, we have to push the changes. So for pushing, I can go to these three dots, and we have the option to push here. You can see push here, and all the Git options are here. We also have this show Git output. So if I click here, it will show me all the Git output in this output window. And before pushing, we have to add our repository URL. So you can copy the repository URL and then go to command palette. Now, if you try to push at this moment, it will show you a message that you have to add a remote. You will, as you click on push, you will see a message somewhere here down on VS Code that you need to add a remote, and that's what we are going to do before we push. So I will go to view and go to command palette. You can also press Control Shift P or Command Shift P if you are on Mac, and I will say git remote. So we get this git add remote. I will click enter, and first I will give the URL. It says provide the repository URL, so I will paste the URL, and then hit enter. And it is asking me for a remote name. I will say WebdriverIO, whatever name you want to give, you can give here, and again press enter. And now it has added the remote. Still, if you see and check in your repository, if you refresh, still nothing has come here because we have not yet pushed. So I will push, and for pushing, I will go here. I can say push from here, or I can just say publish branch here. So I'll say publish branch, and you can see now it is going to publish everything. If I now go and refresh my repository, you can see my project has come here. All the changes have come. It says my first commit, which was done 2 minutes ago. I can check all the details. If I go to the specs, I can go to the tests, and all my project is now here. Okay, so now we have finally added our project on the GitHub repository. Okay, so we have done this step. We have added remote, we have pushed the changes, and we have checked that the changes have gone to the GitHub repository. This link is for, if I show you, if I say VS Code version control, and if I go to this link, this is the link that is mentioned there in the references. And here, this is the link for using Git with VS Code. So here, if you see here, let me see this one, or the one which we are using is source control. Let me see this one. Yeah, let me see this overview. This is the link. And here you can see all the details about using Git with VS Code. And here it is mentioned, make sure Git is installed. VS Code will use your machine's Git installation. And that's the reason we installed Git first, because VS Code does not have a Git installation of its own. It will use our machine's Git installation, and we need a Git version, which is 2.0.0 or higher. And that's what we have here on my system. If I check again, git space -- version, we have this Git installed here. All right. So now, whenever I make any changes to my project, I can now commit and push. For example, I will go to the Explorer again, and let's go to any of the test cases. I'll go to, let's say, this test. And here, if I make any changes, let's say browser.pause 2000, I will change 2000 to 4000. As soon as I will save this, you will see it will come here in the source control. So as soon as I did that, you can see it has said you have modified something here. And if I go to source control, it is saying there is one change which is not committed yet. And this is done in this particular file. If I click here, it also shows me the changes I have done. So this is what is there on the remote, and this is what is there on my local, which is not yet committed. So I will have to commit. I will again give some message. I will say changed pause time and say commit, say yes, and then I will say sync the changes, or I can just push it and then it will sync. And now if I go and check my repository, you can see here the changes will come. So it says changed pause time now. And if I go and check my tests and check my specs, you can see this is what I have done here. And if I go and check, the changes have come here. It has changed this pause time here as well. Okay, so this is how we can commit and push. And as of now, we are working on a single branch, which is master. We can create more branches, all that we will learn. And I have also explained this in this video, Git and GitHub. So as you want to do more, you can learn all this. And now let us see how we can clone a project from GitHub to our VS Code. So let's say I will close this project. I will close folder. And now let's say this is a project on, this is a repository on GitHub, and I want to clone it in my VS Code. So just copy the repository link. And let's say if I give you this link of my project, you just need this repository link, and then open VS Code, check Git is enabled as we have already seen earlier, and then go to the command palette and say git clone, Or you can also just go here to the source control section and say clone repository. You can click here or go to the command palette and say git clone. And as you select or hit enter, it will ask you for a repository URL. So I give the URL of the repository and press enter. And now it will ask, where do you want to clone the repository? So you can give any location on your system. I'm going to the desktop and I will say select repository location, and this will clone the repository there. So I can check here on my desktop. You can see this repository is cloned. This project is cloned. If I open, you can see all my project has come here from GitHub. And now if I want to open it, I'll just say open folder on VS Code and select the cloned folder, which is this one. And here, my entire project will come here. So you can see we have got our test, we have got our specs. Now you will see the node modules has not come, and we do not have to worry on that because we already have our package.json file. So if I run the command npm install, so if I just run the command, if I go to the terminal of this project and say npm install, it will read the package.json file, and all the dependencies, all that we have in our package.json file dependencies will get added in the node modules folder. So that is the reason we do not upload all those bulky libraries. We can just run a command and get all this here. And again, if I make any changes here, let's say if I do any changes here, it will be tracked, and you can see it has come here, and then the same thing, we can see the changes, and then we can commit and push. So this is how we can clone a repository and clone a project. And then if you want to remove a project or remove a folder from Git, you can first check Git is enabled, as we have done, and then go to the command palette and say git close repository. So just go to command palette, Control Shift P, or from view you can go and say git close. We get this click get close repository option here. So hit enter, and you can see now the project is removed from Git. And if you want to do one more thing, you can do that. Go to the project folder and you will find a hidden folder called .git created. So whenever we add our project to Git, it creates a hidden folder .git. If you want, you can also remove this folder. You can delete this folder, and now our project is removed from Git. So this is how we can do version controlling, and this is how we can add our project on remote repositories. I hope this was very useful. If you have any questions, you can let me know in the comment section. I will see you soon. Thank you for watching, and never stop learning.